darkest time. I can't deny what I see, what I see. We will rise. I can't deny what I see, what I see. In the darkest time. I can't deny what I see, what I see. We will rise. In the darkest time. We will rise.
This is the rhythm of change.
In the darkest time.
This is the sound of redemption.
We will rise.
This is the way that we bring it.
In the darkest time.
This is the way that we bring it down.
We will rise.
Down, down,
I can't deny what I see, what I see.
down, down, down. Down, down,
I can't deny what I see, what I see.
down, down, down. Igniting the fire within you. Exalting the melody of freedom.
We will,
These are the things that will bring it down.
we will rise.
Down, down,
I
down.
can't deny what I see, what I see.
Down, down, down. Down, down,
I
down.
can't deny what I see, what I see.
Down, down, down.
We will rise.
So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud.
We will
Let's
rise.
bring it down. Let's bring it way down.
We will rise.
Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down.
We will rise.
Let's bring it down, down. Down, down, down.
Let me tell you, it's in the air. Joy is in the air. Love is in the air. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Don't sleep on it, brother. You might get left, sister. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like?
We will,
Justice.
we will,
No need to be counted, cause I am down.
we will. In the darkest time. We will,
Down, down, down. Down for the end of racism, for the end of bigotry, cause I am down. For the end of misogyny, that's right. For all the isms out there, just down, down, down.
in the darkest
Let's bring it down. Rise up, people. No more foolishness, and let's bring it way down. Down for the end of racism, for the end of bigotry, cause I am down.
We don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice. Come on. And if you're worried about being marginalized and stereotyped, please don't even show up.
That's right. Stay home.
Stay home. I'm telling you, like Diane. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to we have our own conversations, right? And we just invite people into our conversations on
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we need to change the title to Conversations with Eric Dawson.
right? What's on your mind?
Yeah, right.
Hey, Diane, I'm gonna say this to people because I'm gonna put it out there in the universe so folks know, and then it's gonna make sure that I stay on task. You and I have talked about this. I am currently reviewing where to go to get certified as a life coach. right? We talked about that.
Yes. So
And
what does life coach mean to you?
well, so I think that there has to be a baseline. Like, I mean, I could sit, people call me all the time and ask me for advice. Eric, what do you think about this? Eric, what do you think about this? Right? And I bring to it my life experience. But I think outside of my life experience, when you're a certified life coach, there are additional tools, right? Outside of what you already know. There's some basic tools that you get to put in your toolbox, or arrows you get to put in your quiver, to be able to evaluate and assess and offer opinions, but it's within a framework now, right? Much like a psychiatrist or a psychologist, right? They're different than just somebody who's giving you advice, right? They're coming from a different place. They're coming from a place that's more tried and true than your insular approach, right? What Eric knows, what Eric experiences are. It's coming from a broader place, and you have resources in terms of people and institutions, if you will, and to be able to rely on to ensure that that your progression as you're evaluating is reasonable and sensible. Again, based on this, what I would say, underlying baseline. So that's what it is. And at the end, you're trying to help people get to, you're, for me, a life coach is helping folks on their journey. Right? We all are here, and it's our personal journey. And how can you be the best you? Right? How can you be the best you on your journey? And not only that, but do you understand what your journey is? Right? Do you have a clear understanding? Some people don't. Some people are just wanderers, right? They have not yet defined a destination, right? And so they're just kind of wandering, and they're looking to anchor themselves into something. And other people, they have a clear idea of where it is that they want to go. And it's just kind of helping be that compass, right? To ensure that wherever it is, you're heading in that right direction. Not necessarily to tell people the direction that they should be going in, but here's a direction that you are going in. Right? And is this where you want to go? Right? And being clear on why you want to go there. What are you hoping to achieve? See, it's not saying, you know what you should be doing? You should be doing X, Y, and Z. Nah, it's not for me to say to people. Let me rephrase, right? Yeah, you should be getting the vaccine. So,
boy,
but in terms of your because I don't see the vaccine as a personal journey. I see it as a communal thing, right? We all live here together, and you taking the vaccine is not about you. It's about everybody else around you, right? So that's different.
But isn't making that decision an individual decision where people say? And people are always thinking, when they think about stuff and how they move forward and what they decide to do, it's always about how it's going to affect themselves.
Diane, but if we didn't have a cure for smallpox, right? Would it be okay to say that somebody who had smallpox because of our rights, that they should be able to go and sit center row at a football game or go to a theater or go to the mall?
I'm not saying any of that. I'm not saying any of that. What I'm saying is when people go to make decisions, people think individually about me first.
Selfishly.
And then they say my family.
Sure.
So I don't know if it's selfish, but it's just how they
No, it is selfish. It is selfish.
To think about everything. It's not necessarily about the vaccine, but to think about anything. When people think about stuff, they think about how it affects them.
No doubt. Well, Americans do, right? And a lot of other people do, but there are cultures that don't. There are cultures that think more communally. I was watching a documentary on the Bush people, and they were talking, and it's funny, right? Because we would say that they're not civilized, and we would call ourselves civilized, right? But when we look at our murder rate, when we look at our incarceration rate, when we look at our crime rate, we look at all of those things, right? This civilized group of people do those things, and then the Bush people, but they don't. Right? They have a love and a respect, a communal love and respect. Something that's bigger than them they care about. We look and we call them uncivilized, right? So, I think that I think that some people are selfish, but for the people who are selfish, you have to have people who look and help to identify how some behavior that they involve themselves in, how that behavior impacts a community of people, like this selfish behavior. So during the AIDS epidemic, right, you had selfish people who didn't care whether or not they were infected with AIDS. They decided that they wanted to have sex, unprotected sex, right, because that's what they thought was their right, and the hell with their sex partner, right? So no, you can't function like that in a society, in a community. There have to be times where it's bigger than you, and people have to either, you try to you hope that you can teach it, but then when you get down to it, you sometimes have to legislate it, which is where we see ourselves now with the vaccine, right? Where they're starting to legislate certain kinds of things and make laws and mandate certain kinds of things in terms of who has to be vaccinated, where you can't go, or if you're not vaccinated, that you shouldn't be able to, in the middle of a pandemic, just decide that you don't want to wear a mask and you want to go into a crowded place. You shouldn't be able to decide that on your own and then risk everybody else's life. So no. So in some respects, so back to the life coach thing, I think that there are moments, right, where your journey is your journey, but then there are moments where the twists and turns in your journey impact other people, and separating those things out and having discussions with people to help navigate.
So what is civilization but what the group or the majority decides is civilized? You see? So if the group says, and going back to what you said about the bush, people that live in the bush, if their community says this is what is acceptable and this is what we do as a community, then that's what is civilized to them. And living in our civilization is then decided, as you say, based on laws and science. So
no. Well, but we have no. But yeah, I don't disagree with that. But if we use the term civilized, right, then we have to compare everything that we do to determine whether it's civilized. So if you call yourself a civilized person and murder and rape and all of these things are part of your social norms, right? And then if I ask you, well, is that civilized? And you say, no, that's not civilized. And what you do is you punish people who do it, but then you condone it on some other end. Then no, it's not civilized, right? You call yourself something else, but you can't call yourself civil, like the term, if you just read the definition, right? So
let's look up the definition.
Yeah.
Because you talked about civilization, being civilized, and then you transformed over into social, what did you say?
Social mores or social norms, right? But yeah, look up the definition civilized.
Okay, I'm looking up the definition of civilized. Mm-hmm. And the definition is, as per Google, The definition says an advanced stage of social and cultural development.
So stop. Right? An advanced stage of social development. Okay, keep going. Because I want to, but I want to make sure we keep that social development.
Social development, it says on 2, polite and well-mannered.
Okay. There we go.
Okay. So that's civilized, but it says that the advanced stage of social and cultural development. So social and cultural development also pertains to the community in which you were socialized and developed in, doesn't it? So that's not to say
No. Wait. When they talk about no.
So what I'm saying is the prison system, with being within the prison system, being a prisoner, that is a different type of social and cultural development.
No. You think it? No.
That's what I'm asking.
Well,
yeah.
right. So when we talk about uncivilized nations, right, or the civilized world, they're talking about how they have developed socially, right, and a lot of it has to do with industrial, right, civilization, right? So where they with technology, where they with industries, where they that's the development.
Measurement. That's the barcode. Okay.
That is the development, right? So when they look at bush people, they say, "Oh, they don't have any buildings. They don't have railroad stations. They don't have internet. They don't have the right." And so they say that they are underdeveloped. Right, so when we say socially developed, they say they are underdeveloped, and so there's a
development. Yes.
So there is so this is what I'm saying. So when we say civilized, understand what we mean by civilized. We don't mean, like, for me, the meaning of civilized means that you don't act in a barbaric way, right? That and so, but we do here in America, right? We you just drive through, and again, Dr. King talked about it all those many decades ago. He said, look, to be the richest country in the world and to have the level of poverty that we have, where's the civilization in that? Where's the civilization in that? To take napalm bombs and to bomb children across the world, where's the civilization in that thinking? See, but we look and we say we're civilized, but look at the actions. The actions don't meet the definition of the word civilized. Right? So that's kind of where I am on that.
Okay, interesting. So you're going to become a life coach.
So I'm going to become a life coach.
On track. Get your life right. Get your life together. Get your life.
I got to become a life coach. And am I perfect? No, I'm not. Right? But I don't think that anybody is. So.
And that's a good point that you just made, that you're not perfect. Because when you first initially said it to me, I said to you, "Oh, you got a whole lot of crap going on with you. How are you going to be able to life coach somebody else?" And you said that. And when you said that to me, you also said in reference to, well, I may not have everything together, but I'm at a level that I'm what did you say? And I'm not verbatim giving it back to you, but I'm able to help somebody who has not quite gotten to where I've gotten.
That's right. So every life coach isn't for everybody, right? So there will be some people who are beyond where I am in my own journey, right? And so I won't be helpful to them. But for another group of people, I will have tools to be able to get them to a place. And here's the other thing, right? It's almost like a relay race, where you may find benefit in me for a chapter or a season in your journey, and then you move on to somebody else, right? Not necessarily better, or worse, but more suited for where you now are in your journey. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's never about being better or worse. It's about, is it a fit right now? And you don't measure it by good or bad. You just say it's a fit or it's not a fit. So, so to those who I will be a fit, I'll be looking forward to, being able to walk with them for that period of their journey, that they allow me to, and, and we'll grow together, right? I'll learn things, they'll learn things, and, I'm looking forward to that transformation. Anyway, and I'm looking to add that piece to what we do here, right? To be able to now say, I am a certified life coach. And so these are the things that we can talk about under that spectrum or through that prism. Anyway.
Well, in the news, excuse me, did you see Bernie Madoff passed away
Good.
in prison?
Well, I mean, when I say, look,
trying to get out, but of course because of COVID, but they wouldn't let him out. It's a tragedy for everybody who was affected by his Ponzi scheme, including his family. When his sons committed suicide, his wife left him, of course. But I think some of that, I don't know. I can't say. I don't know if she knew some or what was going on, because you could be in a relationship and just totally be blindsided by the stuff that people are doing. And if they're doing well, and if that's their business, you take it for what it is, and you bask in the glory. And then when stuff hits the fan, then you're like, you're shocked 101. But yeah, so he passed away in prison yesterday. So I just wanted to highlight that. But go ahead.
Well, and I think that, and when I said good, right, everybody's going to die. That is just the reality, right? For some people who are here, who are still here, who have done a lot of harm, their presence here doesn't give those people they harmed an opportunity for closure, right? And so, and what they may consider to be real justice, right? So, with him now being gone, hopefully, those people who he harmed, and he harmed a lot of people, right? That those people can now start to find some level of comfort, right, and some level of peace and closure.
Comfort when someone does you wrong and they're deceased? Does that bring you comfort? I was reading just another little article. They talked about Bernie Madoff, and they were saying, the title of the article talked about, is it time to dance on Madoff's grave?
Well, I don't know that it's dancing. See, I don't know. Like, so again, all of the people that he harmed will have to find their own way of coming to peace, right? And it wouldn't be for me to say to the one who says, for me to get peace, I need to dance on his grave. Well, if that person feels that they need to do that, I mean, we have some deeper conversation, but me not being in their shoes, right? Pardon the pun, but me not being in their shoes, I don't know that I'm the one who says that you find peace some other way, right? I don't know, right? So, and then you have other people who say, who may have found forgiveness for him, right? And maybe mourning the fact that, he died, right? So there are levels, but I mean, people going to get to it. But for me, my guttural instinct was to say, like, good, meaning that this chapter is closed, and folks will, you know,
Move on or
move
whatever.
on, move on.
Now the other thing is, people say that, and I don't know if it's in the Bible because I can't quote it, but I'm sure it's there somewhere. Everything's in the Bible. If you want to know anything, it's there. That forgiveness is for yourself, not for the offender. So we're saying that we are now into day 2 or day 3 of Ramadan. Can you explain what Ramadan actually is? Because I looked it up to see what it does, and it seems like everything, and it's very, I don't know where I heard this at, but it's very, not unique, but every single religion has a different way to honor their God or a different name for their God, but they all have one word for the devil. So I thought that was interesting. So explain to me what is Ramadan and what happens during this period.
Well, so yeah, I'm going to give it to you here. I'm going to so well, there's a lot of stuff in here, and I'm just going to read some of it. So it says, why is Ramadan called Ramadan? Ramadan is the 9th month of the Islamic lunar calendar and lasts either 29 or 30 days, depending on when the new crescent moon is or should be visible. The Arabic term Ramadan connotes intense heat. It seems in the pre-Islamic Arabia, Ramadan was the name of a scorching hot summer month. In the Islamic calendar, however, the timing of Ramadan varies from year to year. This year, Ramadan begins in most places on April 13th. Right, so you said it a couple of days. An Islamic year is roughly 11 days shorter than the Gregorian year. What is the significance of Ramadan? Ramadan is a period of fasting and spiritual growth and is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. The others being the declaration of faith, daily prayer, alms giving, and the pilgrimage to Mecca. Able-bodied Muslims are expected to abstain from eating, drinking, and sexual relations from dawn to sunset each day of the month. Many practicing Muslims also perform additional prayers, especially at night, and attempt to recite the entire Quran. The prevailing belief among Muslims is that it was in the final 10 nights of Ramadan that the Quran was first revealed to the Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him. What is the connection between the soul and body and the observance of Ramadan? Observance of Ramadan seeks to explain. The Quran states that fasting was prescribed for believers so that they may be conscious of God by abstaining from things that people tend to take for granted, such as water. It is believed one may be moved to reflect on the purpose of life and grow closer to the Creator and Sustainer of all existence. As such, engaging in wrongdoing effectively undermines the fast. Many Muslims also maintain that fasting allows them to get a feeling of poverty, and this may foster feelings of empathy. Right? And then, so can Muslims skip fasting under certain conditions? If so, do they make up missed days? All those who are physically limited, for example, because of an illness or old age, are exempt from the obligations of fasting. And this is important, right? This is an important part. So I used to fast. And you don't see me fasting now. You see me drinking. And it is the underlying ailments that I have, right? So for me personally, if I were to fast, I would lose weight. And I'm constantly, because of my underlying conditions, eating and drinking, trying to get nutrients and to maintain my weight. And it would be unhealthy for me, like just unhealthy for me to fast. During Ramadan, women who are menstruating are not typically don't fast because of the same thing, right? Your body is losing through the blood loss some nutrients and things. And so, just medically speaking, they don't think that it is a good thing for them to do it. Elderly, same thing, right?
So, question: when you talk about the fasting and who shouldn't fast because of medical reasons, was that something that has always been since the beginning, or is that something that came along with
Well,
civilization?
so here's the thing, and I'm not an imam, and it would be great to have an imam on, and maybe if I know Vincent said he was going to be listening, and the wise ones are going to be on the show. Maybe Vincent, you can have Imam Bashir talk about this, but Islam is not a religion void of common sense. Right? So you always have to start there. It's not a religion that's void of common sense. And so if one is not able-bodied, if the thing that you're doing is going to harm you, right? So the purpose of it is not to kill you. And so if you are nutrient deprived, or if you are dehydrated, for instance, right, you're not required, nor is it recommended that you fast, right? Because fasting also includes no drinking from sun up to sundown, right? So if somebody is in a dehydrated state, and let's say we're in the middle of a heat wave, right? It just isn't common sense that a person would fast. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? So always have to, take that into consideration, that Islam is not void of common sense.
Okay. And the reason why for different religions don't understand other people's religions, nor wants to understand, they believe that their religion is the religion.
Well, we have a call. Let's take this call before you. Go ahead, caller.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm fasting, Diane.
Mm-hmm.
But what I wanted to call about is, so it's always been my training in Islam that just like during the month, right, without Ramadan, right, that when a woman is menstruating or a girl is menstruating, that we cannot make our obligatory prayers, right? We can't make salat. We can sit on the prayer rug and make sticker, which is sticker beads, and the rest.
Wait! Go back. What is salat? Okay. What is salat?
The prayer, my prayer.
Okay.
Making salat is making prayer, right? So, but during regular, without Ramadan, and I'm gonna say, and I can't wait for the mom to call in, because this is how I was taught, right? Was that it was about, when you're making salat, you're cleaning your body from head to toe. You are, we even will put on oil so that when we're making salat, we are coming to our God in this very sweet hit and our best person, right? And that when you're menstruating, you can't, right? That you can't come to him as clean. It's I've read some things where around the country, or let's say Islamic countries, that some women have kind of like tried to fight that why aren't they able to make prayer and participate during that month. So, right? So that's just a regular process in Islam, that we women do not make our obligatory prayers when we are menstruating. We are not allowed, and I'm going to say that it is because we are not considered at that full cleanliness to come to our God and pray, right? And then in Ramadan, I was taught it was like twofold. That it was about what Eric said, that when a woman is menstruating, losing nutrients and whatever, that fasting, that humongous period of time, and losing blood is just not good for you. But I'm still going to say it's the battle. I'm going to be that anti or pro-woman and say, no, it's considered that they don't think we're clean enough. So during Ramadan, just those days, you can start Ramadan, right? And fast and pray. And then as soon as you're menstruating, you're shut off from the party.
So what's interesting to me when you talk about the menstrual cycle itself is to cleanse your body out. So I would that at that point they would want you to be there because you are the one who is literally who gives life and who is able to cleanse out her body at a regular time. So you're more pure than a man might be. I don't know.
Could you tell him?
That's just my. I don't know. I might get kicked out. If I was a Muslim, I might get kicked out. Because I'll be like, no, that doesn't make sense to me. But I'm just saying, and I guess that's mixing science with religion, and I don't know if one and one would go together. But yeah.
Well, you know what? I think it's clear. I think I'm going to say how you can't, or why we shouldn't, I guess, as women be upset is, right? Like, so if it's 30 days, right, then you have to do this fasting and prayer. But if within those 30 days you get your menstrual, those days are not held against you, whether you menstrual for 3 days or 10 days, right? Like, because it's different for every woman. Those days are not held against you, for one, right? And so you're still, if you then start up when it's over, that you are still considered, have gone through and participated in Ramadan at its fullest. So that I don't think it's held against you on the back end. I also wanted to say that it's in some hadith that
what's hadith? What's hadith?
I'm trying to, I'm trying to, because not every Muslim holds its hand on hadith, but what I would say, so like the Quran is the book, like your Bible or the Bible, right? And then hadith is like an off book that tries to, because I don't know the technical sense, but like other writings that coincide with the Quran.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you follow me?
Yeah, I got you.
Hadith, it says that when a Muslim does celebrate and go through the fasting and praying of Ramadan, and does the completes it, right? That the Most High forgives you of your sins from the past year.
Gotcha. I gotcha. So, what type of activities happen between the family or children activities that happen during the period of Ramadan? Because I know, like, in the Christian realm, when we're doing our fasting, it's usually right up until leading from Good Friday into Easter. What type of things do you guys do? Or is there something that you do, family-wise or with the kids, to recognize the dawn?
Well,
So we have go ahead, Eric. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, it's so understand again. It is the whole purpose, right? Is to become more centered, right, as Muslim, and so to that end, the activities with the family ought to center around meditation, around prayer, thoughtfulness, humility, those kinds of things, right? And then the breaking of fast is a is a is a bigger communal kind of thing, right? So families get together, like whether it's immediate families or extended families, in this community, where one of the largest masjids around here is, you hear the call to I hear the call to prayer, and they feed the community,
Jody,
right?
mute your phone, Jody. But go ahead, Eric.
And
Okay.
they feed
Sorry.
they feed the community, right? So but that's, yeah, so that's really what it is. It's really a time of reflection, right, and introspection, and a wanting to, to be closer to God, which is why they say that, when you're fasting and you experience those hunger pains, right? It may take you to a place of thinking about, how blessed you are, right, and how you've taken that for granted, and maybe that homeless person or people, or that you've just kind of walked past or drove past, when you're experiencing that and you're in your car and you see that person, you have a different outlook on God's creature and creation. So, and then, as an adult, you share those experiences and ideas and, with your children.
So, it's interesting when we talk about different religions, and we started this show talking about civilization and being civilized. If more people were actually more in tune with their religion, because most religions that I know and know of teach peace and love and humanity. If we stuck to our religions as people, this entire world would be different. So now the question is, we have all of these outside influences that affect us. Why is it only during our time of Ramadan or our time between Good Friday and Easter that we're able to practice humanity, and all of us collectively can't move forward out of this to do it? What is it that happens? Or what shift do we need to go back to that? Because when we talk about, and you got the book posted, Eric, you talk about where do we go from here, chaos or community, and we talked about vaccines or no vaccines and all these different things that are happening. If we come back to our inner selves and stick to our religion and what we were taught, and not all of us have it, but more of us have it than don't, if we stuck to that and led first with our heart and led first with love, then maybe many of the problems and concerns that we have and issues in our community we would not have.
Right, but think about this, right? We started off the show talking about selfishness, right? And as opposed to communal thinking. And so because of that, there are words that are in the Torah or the Quran or the Bible, right? There are teachings from Buddha, and we can go down a list of religions. But everybody, every individual reads and takes from it, because we're human beings and by nature we are selfish. We take from it what works for us as individuals, not what works for us as a collective. And so there's that struggle that always takes place, right? Because, this doesn't suit what I want to do right now, so I'm going to interpret it this way, right? Doesn't suit where I want to be in life, so I'm going to interpret it that way, as opposed to it being what it is. And then you conforming to that, we try to contort it always to conform to our limited selfish behavior, and that's it. And so because you have, whether it's a church of 600 people or a masjid of 2,000 people, right, there's this struggle to try to bring everybody to an understanding, to this universal understanding, as opposed to this individualistic thinking. So there lies the problem. And then because you have that now, it becomes whoever has the most influence, right? Whoever has the most power then gets to, take their bastardization of whatever religion it is that they, subscribe to, and enforce that on everybody. And then you get the wars and the other stuff.
Wow. So I was reading another article to switch gears a little bit, and the article title talks about reparations bill passes out of the committee into an historic vote. So the reparations legislation is headed to the House floor for the first time in more than 3 decades. So what they talk about is Wednesday night, the House Judiciary Committee voted to bring H.R. 40 out of committee, a historic feat not accomplished by the late Reverend John Connors, who first introduced the bill in 1989. The legislation was introduced in every Congress since then, but has never made it past committee vote until last night, where it passed with the support of 25 Democrats and over 17 Republicans. If passed in both chambers, the bill would establish a commission to study reparations into another.
See, there you go. Just stop there. Just stop there.
And there it comes.
Right. Just stop there. Right. So another committee. Right. Mm-hmm. So as long as they continue to push to have committees and nothing gets done. Right, we know how that goes. You have another meeting to have a meeting. You schedule a meeting to meet about the meeting you're going to have about the meeting that you had 2 weeks ago, right? And then you have to break out. You have breakout sessions from those meetings to discuss what was discussed at the meeting that you were supposed. Yeah.
Right. Okay, I'm over it.
There we go.
So we talked offline, and we were talking about policing, and we talked about this some time ago. And again, we have another situation in Minnesota where a young man, 20 years old, was shot, Dante Wright. And I heard the recording. No, I'm sorry. Pause. I heard his mom recant the recording. Or her actual, what happened. Her son called her. He said, I got pulled over by the cops. She said, why? She said that her son said air fresheners hanging from the rear view mirror. There was another young lady in the car with them at the time, with Dante at the time. She said she heard the officer come to the car, tell him to hang the phone up. He hung the phone up. She said she started to frantically call back to him. No answer, kept calling. The young lady in the car then answered the phone, was frantic and screaming, saying they just shot him on FaceTime. They shot him. She turned the phone around for his mom to see, and he was laying slumped over the steering wheel. I was in tears.
Yeah.
In tears. I was driving on the parkway when I'm listening to this.
But you know what though? But I'm gonna say this again and again and again. While the people were still dancing on the streets that have Black Lives painted on them, where Black Lives really don't matter, right? Those people are dancing. They were celebrating that they got that. And back then we were saying here on the show, like, yo, see. You're gonna be the one shocked when the shit keeps happening, because you think somehow these ameliorations, right, which Dr. King talked about, right, are real things, that they're real change. And I'm saying, yo, look, I'm never. You got to get to the point where you say, you know what, when I stick my hand inside of a lion's den, I expect that I'm going to get my hand bitten off. Right? That's it. Right? Be shocked when it's not. Don't be shocked when it gets bitten off. And so we're in the lion's den. We're in the lion's den. And for some reason, we continue to be shocked when we get bitten.
I'm not shocked. I'm angry. I was angry before. I've always been angry. It's another young man, young black person that's been added to the list, a long list that does not seem to stop. And after reading so many books, you see the continuous behavior is a learned behavior. Initially, we were talking about defunding the police. Defunding the police, I said then, is not the way, because and then there was a conversation that I had on Facebook with another gentleman who's a former sheriff officer, and he said the training is the training. The training isn't the problem. It's the people is the problem. I said, well, how do you fix it? He said the whole system has to be destroyed.
Yes. But Diane, but we were, listen,
it's put in place to do exactly what it's doing.
I had a conversation with my brother yesterday, and we had, it was a spontaneous, it kind of combusted, right? We were talking about something else, and then it combusted into this whole thing. Yes, we do need to tear it all down. And we need to understand, and I think I mentioned this the other day, the solution is that at the local levels, I need to understand right now why every black mayor, every black council person, every black elected official, we can talk about the other ones too, but let's stay home right now. Why every single one of them haven't taken to the streets.
Oh, Eric, stop it. They did. They spray painted Black Lives
No.
I'm telling you,
that's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. But that's not what I'm talking.
You can't say they didn't take the streets.
Diane.
This is their action on how they thought they was going to stop it.
Diane.
They went out there and marched alongside people and said, this is my thing.
Diane, but what I'm saying is why they haven't taken to the streets, right? And protested, right? Their current position, which is that they have no power, right? They're powerless. They are tools of the oligarchs. And if they don't we have to come to grips with this. Either they are comfortable with what I just said, right? That they have no power and that they're tools of the oligarchs, or they want to extricate themselves from that condition, right? And they haven't taken to the streets, I say, because they're comfortable where they are. They're benefiting from being where they are. They personally benefit, and their immediate circle of friends and family benefit. And so they are willing participants in all of this. We have to understand that. You know, somebody said to me yesterday, it was a white person who said this to me, and probably like very conscious white person. She said, I hate white people. I said, like, don't hate white people, right? I don't hate white people. I hate the system. And then I hate anybody who is supporting or supportive of the system, right? And when you say that, then you include white people, some white people, and non-white people too. Right? And so I said, you can't exclude the non-white people who are benefiting from this system at the expense of us. Right? And so look at all of them. And so keeping it home again, you've got these black elected officials, these black faith-based folk. You've got these black folks who are leaders of these nonprofit organizations. They have been systematically placed within our communities, right, with the sole purpose of propping up this system that we're fighting against. That's why they haven't taken to the streets.
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying to you? That's why they haven't taken to the streets. So all of this is going on around, and they're just sitting there. They're not doing anything meaningful. So I understand that. So there'll be these token protests like you just talked about, Diane. So the token protests lead to the paint on the street. but not the garbage picked up off the street, not the drug dealers moved off the street, not lower crime, not better schools.
We also allow the political structure to conflate the issues, right? So I think the day before yesterday, and I'm so glad Vincent isn't on the show today because I get to not, I'm trying not to smoke cigarettes too in my fasting, right? That Joe Biden sitting in a room talking about the police, right? The kid is murdered, and he's talking about the police, and he basically said, "But my administration is working on this," and he used the COVID bill as an answer. We've already started to stop this problem by stopping the childhood poverty with the COVID bill, right?
Wow.
So, conflating the issue of there's the police issue where we're being murdered, and where does child poverty have to do with that issue? You have bills that you can pass that directly attack these issues, right? So you have the George Floyd bill that would directly fight against police and change the structure, and like you and Eric just said, tear it down. And that's a bill. That's legislation that you could pass to work on that problem, right? And then the voting issue, you got some bills that you could pass that can help that problem. But instead, you will continue to say the COVID bill passing is going to help all of those problems, which we all know isn't true. But there were black people, black legislators, black Congress people, black leadership from different counties and states that he was talking to, and no one in that room said apples and oranges have nothing to do with this issue, because we allow them to conflate our issues and throw everything into a bunch. And as Eric said, right, do something that has nothing to do with it, very just, nothing that we accept. We accepted that march. We accepted the painting, and we didn't ask for much more. So when it continues to happen, we just say, Black Lives Matter. Crazy.
So with that, Jody, President Biden also came out and stated that, as this is an unfortunate, and I'm not quoting him, unfortunate incident in some ways, he said that this is not a time to be out there looting and doing those things in those communities. And my thing is, when he made that statement, he diverted away from the issue, because looting is just a result of the emotions of how people have been treated because of bad behavior by police. And I was just saying off air to Eric that if we were talking about a surgery and you went into the hospital, you had a surgery, and the doctor left something in you or did something incorrect or improper, he would have malpractice insurance that would cover what he did. And he has to pay that out of pocket, or the agency has to pay that. I believe, and I've said this before, that police officers should be required to have professional liability insurance, and they should have to whether pay it through the union or pay it individually. Because what happens is with these lawsuits is, even with the last lawsuit with Breonna Taylor, so they sued the city. The city, they win a lawsuit, and now the people of the city who pay taxes are paying for their lawsuit. So it's never a repercussion on the officers or the officers' union who actually created this problem. So if you don't hold the individual accountable, they continue to do what they do because they know they have protection of the union, and they have protection of whatever the clause is that says they can't be held accountable. So until we address that there will put the direct liability back onto the officer and or the officers union. Now, someone else that I was talking to online said, well, we should we should go back after the pensions, and when this happens, the pension fund should pay out. Okay, well, if the pension fund pays out, again, you're now holding a large number of officers who have done nothing wrong accountable for an individual who has done a lot wrong. So I think it has to go back, and that's the type of legislation that should be moving forward and people should be talking about, is holding individual officers accountable for what they do by making them have their own personal liability insurance, whether it's through the union or individually.
Well, I think that you could do both. So I think
there's the cause and effect.
Right. I think that part of it is that they should be liable, right? So they should have some insurance. But I also think that the pension thing is an interesting thing to look at, right? And so I never thought about it. And so this is just off the cuff thinking about it. When you say, well, okay, so this officer does something and now is being sued, and then part of the lawsuit is going to be settled through the pension fund, and why should that happen? And then all of these other police officers who contribute to this pension fund, they're now being hit in the pocket because of this. And what I say to that is this: those officers, right, are a part of the problem, all of them, right? And so in the truest sense, now you say, well, hey, look, I'm going to now, if I know that the behavior of that officer, right, is reckless and may at some point cause him or her to be sued, and if he or she is sued, it's going to come from the pension fund, which is going to now tap into my pockets, then maybe I'm more likely to blow the whistle on that cop before it gets to that. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Because if I understand it, it's going to affect me as a member of the, because we're clear about this. So here's the thing that we're clear.
What happens, Eric, is you break down the blue wall by doing that.
Here's the thing that we're clear about right now. We're clear that police officers care more about themselves than they do about us. Right? I don't know, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, if we've seen at any time where an officer was doing something that was reckless and dangerous, and it was and their behavior was endangering the life of a civilian, and the partner of that officer interceded to protect the civilian and to hold the police officer accountable on the scene. I don't know that I've ever seen that. Right? So with all of the different things that we see occur, right, they're usually more than one officer. So let's take the Derek Chauvin thing. So you had the 3 officers or 4 officers there. You had Chow, and you had Derek Chauvin and 2 other officers on George Floyd, right? And then you had all of these people who were saying, yo, you're choking the man out. Yo, he can't breathe. Yo, he got blood coming out of his nose. Yo, he's foaming from the mouth. And then you had the one MMA guy say to Chow, hey, listen, you're going to stand there and let him do this? And at no point did any of those officers think about the safety, right? Which is kind of what they're talking about in the trial, like this thing, and I love the terminology. They say, "What a reasonable officer." What a reasonable officer, right? So they have this code, right? This manual, which is this nationally followed thing of a reasonable officer. I'm going. So all of these reasonable officers that have all of this training about asphyxiation and being in the prone position and the side recovery position, they all get all of this training, but at the end of the day, it drilled down to them protecting one another, not serving and protecting the citizenry. And so, yes, if you now are standing with those officers, Diane, let's say you were an officer, and you see these other 4 officers, and you realize some shit may go bad. And if it goes bad, somebody may get sued. And if they get sued, it's going to hit your pocket. Maybe then you'll say, hey man, get your knee off his neck. Because now you're protecting your own self, your own money. See, even if you're not protecting him, right? You're protecting your own money, and secondarily or tertiarily, he's being saved because of your selfishness. But right now, your selfishness is killing him because you're concerned about you and this blue wall of silence and all these things. So, like you said, to break that down, right? Make every individual there realize, like, yo, you may have to pay for this. You may have to pay for what you're doing or what he's doing. And maybe if that becomes a part of the thinking, but then it's got to be more than that, right? Like,
I was going to say, right, isn't it like, so when you guys talked in the beginning of the show about humanity and, right, being civilized and having a better space or society, right? That's why I always need your back to legislation, right? Because so if by state to state they start implementing these laws where you can sue a police officer, we now have to wonder, right? What is the thing that's going to stop them, right? Because hell, I didn't know this. Orlando Castillo, that was there. That was Michigan. Right? And then George Floyd. And now this baby, right? So we tried to scare them if we're taking this theory of suing or charging them, right? But we should have scared them with Orlando Castillo. Look what they did in that state. We're not talking, state to state, right there in Michigan. That's where that happened, right? And then George Floyd, right? And now this case. So are we really scaring them? Because I would think that officer, that female officer to me, which was also like kind of wild to me, that she knew when she was doing that at that moment, 10 miles down the road, a coworker, was on trial for murder. Right? It didn't stop her, though. It didn't stop her. So neither do I, or any of us, just feel like any implementation of a new state to state per state, right? That wouldn't be legislatively state to state law that says, okay, you can sue them, would stop the insidious racism and white supremacy that lives and breathes in those police departments, right? But all they have to do is put the fucking bill on the table. Put it on the table, right? Where it makes it federally a crime to do this. You know what was crazy? They put a bill, I think this was this morning, if not late last night, and only 6 Republicans voted against passing a bill on Asian crime. Do you know what that means? So they're afraid to put a voters' rights bill on the floor because they'll have to do the filibuster. They're afraid to put the George Floyd bill on to stop us from being murdered, right? But they put a bill out last night on the Senate floor, and they got that bill. That bill will pass because only 6 Republicans voted against it. What does that say about this country and how they see us?
Right, but that's what I'm saying.
But you know what? What it should say is for all the people who voted for Biden, saying that, I'll have the House, I'll be in control of it, and I'll be able to get everything done, is that he is not who he says he portrayed to be, and that they still value other people more than they value a black skin.
Well, but okay, but we understand that, right? So when we have the conversation about
Eric, people don't understand that. You, me, Jody, people that listen understand that.
And you know what?
Don't understand. That's why they still move the way they move.
Well, no.
That's why people say I'm a diehard Democrat. I bleed blood.
No.
My blood bleeds blue, and I have to support the party, and I have to because they don't see and understand. They don't.
I think that there is, I think that people are in denial, but I think that they recognize by and large that they are, which is why they have the conversations around the table about how to behave, right? Because they know what this country does to black people, right? What law enforcement does to black people. All of the people who go to the prisons and put money on the books of all of their family members and friends, they know, they see it. So to say that they don't
So
know.
here it is, right? So you guys did it, so you know what it is, right? The Senate voted on Wednesday to advance legislation that would strengthen federal efforts to address hate crimes directed. Now remember, they're doing this in the middle of the George Floyd trial. Anyway, hate crimes directed at Asian Americans, paving the way for passage of the measure and sending a bipartisan denunciation of the sharp increase in discrimination and violence against Asian communities in the United States. The bill, called the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act, passed a procedural hurdle in a 92-6 vote, and final vote is expected later this week. So that means right underneath our noses, right underneath our noses, they won't put the voters right back on the floor. Won't put the George Floyd back while they're talking. While Biden is, as Eric said, having a meeting on the meeting, about that final meeting. While he's meeting about us, they're passing legislation to protect them from hate crimes. And we just had 2 black boys die. Like, that is amazing to me. That isn't something that this country is like going wild about. I just don't understand that. And they said that this morning on the news as like a light little, hey, this happened. Because I'm beginning to think that, as Eric talked about him the other day, that the Joe Scarboroughs of the world, that these news outlets understand that, damn, these black people dumb. What's wrong with them? Because they allow anything to happen to them. And like you said, Diane, and will stand behind the color blue. Just to say it's okay. Tell us to be patient. Tell us the 100 days aren't up yet. Tell us he's working on it. But he's working for someone else. He's not working for us. They're not working for us. That's amazing to me.
It's not amazing, Jody, because we didn't put anything into his campaign. Again, from the beginning, when people were saying, in order to get what you want for a campaign, you got to invest some money. Bottom line.
Right. But that's
it.
Right.
You got to invest some money. And if you're not investing money, if you're not willing to come off of $5, $10, $20, you don't have a say in what he does. He is controlled by who has financially invested in him, because they are pushing their issues.
Right. So, well, right. But yeah. I mean, that's the short of it. But no, nothing's nothing with that administration, nothing without a cataclysmic collision is going to change, right? So there is a caste system. We are here to be the commodity to the wealth and to the power, right? You have we are the most despised group, right? So every other group is trying to figure out how to get closer to the advantaged group, and the advantaged group is always working to pit all of the other groups against the most despised group, right? And so that is the dynamic. So, which is why I said before, like, yo, look, I'm not mad at the fact that these Asians don't want to be beaten up, right? They should go and do what they do. But don't ask me right now to come and help you, because I'm trying to get this motherfucker's knee off my neck, right? So you can't ask me while I got his knee on my neck to help you with your situation, right? I'm not gonna do anything to roadblock you trying to get your situation resolved, right? But if you can't see that he's got his knee on my neck and I got to deal with this is the immediacy in my life, right? If you too selfish to see that, then screw you too, right? Because this is what I got to work on, right? And I understand that in the end, like you just said, Jody, in the end, to keep me down, they'll lift you up.
Oh.
Right? I understand that too. Right? And do you understand that? And then what are you willing to do for that? So don't call me for your fight. I don't have the energy. I don't have the bandwidth to come and fight for you. And that's why, so when I see black folk engaging in anything else, I'm like, where do you don't have the resource to go help somebody else. I don't even know that we have the resource to pray for anybody else. With all this shit that's going on. You understand what I'm saying? Like at the end, but if you focus all of your energy on what's happening to black folks, you'd be too exhausted at the end of the day. Where do you find some extra? There's no extra right now. Everything, every single thing. And this is what Dr. King said. He said, we have not sacrificed enough. Reason we're not in a better place is because we haven't sacrificed enough. So we got to reserve. We got to reserve. And we're giving that reserve at the border. We're giving that reserve, for the Asians. We're giving that reserve for these other people. We're giving that reserve. We're not exhausted enough in fighting for our own stuff.
So let me just read some stuff that's in the feed. So Michael Bosch is saying, if a cop goes wrong and his partner, the chief of police, the city, and their union protects the action and tries to cover it up, then they are all the same. Why we need change and reform is necessary. He says, first, I think to pose a scenario and a question, if a child is being physically and verbally abused by a parent, for example, a father throughout the years, and the mother watches but does nothing to stop it, and when a child protective services finds out and they go to court, the mother does nothing to hide it, excuse it, and cover it up. Even when the hospital records show broken bones and bruises, she tells them the child fell instead of saying the truth. The mother is just as guilty. It's the same. Yes, there are good cops and bad cops, but if there are police officers standing idly by watching and not doing nothing or saying nothing to stop police abuse and brutality, and if that's helping to hide it, excuse it, or cover it up, then they are guilty of the crime, and so they too are bad cops. The blue code under the qualified immunity needs abolishing and reform, and training is extremely necessary from the top down to all the officers, the chief, the police unions, the city, the mayor, the police academy, and all the officers. No more cover-ups, no more hiding and lying.
Right. So right. So a couple things. Right? I'm gonna. Yeah. I don't know. You gotta first tell me what it means to be a good cop. Like, I need to understand. So when somebody says, oh, they're good cops and bad cops, tell me what it means to be a good cop. Because then what I want to know is this. I want to know for the good cops, let's take all the good cops and let's put them over here. All the ones that you say are good cops, put them over here. Then the first thing I'm going to ask you is, tell me one cop that these good cops, any of them, turned in. I'm gonna start there, right? So take all of what anybody is gonna call a good cop, put them all over here. Then I'm gonna ask you again, very clearly, tell me when any of these that you have identified as good cops have turned in a single cop that they know illegally face plants kids, right, to the pavement, that illegally search, that take the drugs off of the drug dealers, right? That we can go down the list of things because they all know the ones in the precincts who do those things, and I want to know how many of the ones that you're going to put over in this category as good cops turn them in. Right? And so now if they don't turn him in, then for everyone that you say, well, he didn't turn him in, then you got to move him over from being a good cop because he ain't a good cop. We can't fudge the definition of good. If the idea is that they're there to serve and protect, that's it. Right? Whatever this code is. And they're not doing it. They're serving and they're protecting the bad cops, right? They're complicit. They know. They all know. Listen, I would say I had a conversation with somebody. I said, you know what? In a school of 2,000 people, 2,000 students, everybody know who the bully is. Everybody knew who the drug dealers were. Everybody in the school knew who all these people. So you tell me within a police department that they don't know who the bad cop is or the bad cops are?
I posed that question before on Facebook in regards to when we talked about cleaning up the community and why we have these problems, we know who the drug dealer in the family is, and why, as a family member, would you or would you not turn them in? And most people said they would not.
Right.
They would not.
Right. But I want to stay on this good cop, bad cop thing, though. But this good cop, we got, like, we say good cop. And look, you can go through, when a police officer finally gets to the point where they are in a case like a Derek Chauvin or the police officer who, whatever case, you go down to cases. They go through their records and then you see all these infractions. Right? You see all these things that the officer did. And people say, well, that should have led to somebody doing so. They should have been able to catch this. This should have been flagged. We need this national database. We need that's all smoke and mirrors. All you needed was a goddamn cop that rode with that cop in a car to open his fucking mouth. You don't need a goddamn database. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? You had a cop riding this car with this cop for 20 years. You had these other cops on the force with this cop for 20 years. You don't need no database. You just need them to stand up and go, yo, we need to get this guy off the force. This is what he's doing or what she's doing. And so now I say to you, so for all of the cops that knew, how do we say that they're good cops? How do we use that phrase and say that they're good cops?
I can give you a perfect example. Township of Hillside. And people can Google this. They can look it up. The current police chief was on desk duty for his entire career until 6 years ago when the previous mayor, Angela Garrison, made him the police chief. And people fought it, and she still made him the police chief. And he was not a good cop.
Right.
And everybody in the police force knew. The police chief that was over him knew, and that's why he was on desk duty. He was on desk duty the entire career until the last 6 years. He was told he could not go out in the car again because there were so many complaints and issues and problems that he had in the community. And Hillside is only 2.7 square miles.
Right, but these are all ticking time bombs. These are all ticking time bombs in the police department, right, across the country. Right, and these cops allow them to be there with them, and so this is the other piece, right? And for the same actions that they watch these officers, their fellow officers, do things they watch them do, they would go and arrest somebody else who's doing the same thing. So they know that it's illegal. They know, but because that officer has on a blue uniform and a badge, right? They don't say anything. And I'm saying to you, like, how do you say good cop, bad cop? Like, how do you determine? What is the, how do you figure that? Anyway, so that's one thing, Diane. And here's the other piece. Especially in black communities where you have black elected officials. The fact that they take money from the police union, right?
Bingo.
See, the fact that they take money from the police union lets you know that money talks and bullshit walks, right? So when on one hand they're screaming and hollering, social justice, social justice, social justice, we need reforms, and then over here they getting their pockets stuffed with the money from the unions that do all of the protecting of all of this stuff. Come on, guys, gals. See, I'm gonna tell you the truth. They take that money. They get that endorsement from the same group that they say they despise.
That's right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you see the union standing up, protecting those cops, that union put money in the pocket of that black mayor, that black council, that black assembly, that black whomever, right? Because at the end of the day, the job of those black electors now are to keep you at bay. That's what their job is. That's what your job is. And don't you not believe me when I say that they get a phone call in the middle of the night. Yo, you gonna take care of that, right? You gonna make sure that they don't. You on that, right? Yeah, I'm on it. Yeah, I'm on it. Okay. Dang. So that's why I say, with this thing, it's not just about saying, oh, I got a problem with white people. Because it's down the chain. A bunch of people getting paid off to keep black people getting shot and murdered and imprisoned and all of that. Because we are the commodity to their wealth and to their power.
So as the Derek Chauvin case goes on, he has now invoked the Fifth Amendment and will not testify. And I don't think that should be upheld. I think in a situation, especially with a police officer, and as horrible as the situation is, or not horrible for whoever may be looking at it from their lens, he should be on the stand out of his words saying what it is.
No, you can't, no, you can't, look.
Why?
Why
not?
Look, because every person is entitled, right, constitutionally, to the Fifth Amendment. That's why.
If that's the case, then the deceased, George Floyd, should have that same entitlement, and they should not be able to bring up anything that was non-related to the situation in which that occurred.
So you conflate. So there's different things, right? I think that not only do I think that they shouldn't have that Derek Chauvin should not have taken the stand. I mean, it would have been a foolish thing for his attorney to suggest it, and for Derek to agree to do it, right? For a myriad of reasons. Because I think that the prosecution, I think that they've done a terrific job at their cross-examination of the defense witnesses. And I think that, if you're a defense attorney and you see the skillfulness of the prosecutor, then you don't put them on trial. You don't put him on the stand. You don't expose him. And what you do is, you just, and I said this before, the hope that, their only hope, and I'm sure that they said this to him in the beginning of this thing, like, look, all we need to do is convince one juror that there's reasonable doubt, in the prosecution's case. They got the high hurdle of convincing all 12 jurors to believe what it is that they say. So I wouldn't have put him on the stand, and I wouldn't have taken the stand if I were him. So that's going to be it. And my brother said to me yesterday. He said, I hope that the people of Minneapolis, depending on what the verdict is, that they don't, go burn down the communities. And I said, well, my hope is that they pay attention to the trial, right? And that, whatever the actions are, that they are based on an understanding of what occurred, right, in the entire trial. And that's all that I can ask. to watch it. And I've watched every minute of it. It's been grueling for me to watch, but it's important for me to watch it, right?
I watched the first 3 days, and I just couldn't take anymore. And when you guys were talking about the other day, I was listening, and Jody said that she had not watched the video because she didn't want to take in that energy. I totally agree. It was very traumatizing. I will never ever that his face will be imprinted in my life forever.
Yeah, but the challenge for me, just for me, I'm not suggesting that anybody else do it. I don't know, but for me, it's difficult for me to if I don't watch it and if I don't listen to the stuff to understand why a jury comes back with a verdict that they come back with. So my brother said, "Well, everybody saw what happened," and I said, "Yeah, but when you understand what the law is supposed to do," and again, so this thing combusted the conversation between me and my brother. I said, but when you understand what the law says, right? So the law says when you come in and you are sworn in as a juror, right? The law says that whatever you thought you saw, you're supposed to throw that all out.
Yep.
Right? So let us be clear about that. You're supposed to throw it all out, right? And so what?
And that's why these cases are so flawed with the jurors, is because you can't unsee or unhear what you've already.
No. But so here's the thing, right? Yes. So I understand how broken the system is. I understand that the system doesn't work the same way for everybody, right? But the way the system is supposed to work is they're supposed to throw it all out. Now, the people who watch the jury, right, and who try to assess what the jury is doing, they don't throw it all out. So they're not operating from the position that the jury is supposed to be operating from, right? So they look and go, I saw what happened. I don't understand why the jury's not going to do. Well, you didn't throw it out. You didn't throw out what you thought you saw and just take in the evidence, right? So you're now wanting the jury to do the thing that they're not supposed to be doing. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? So you're and so when I asked and I've talked to several people who say, there's no need to listen to the defense's case because I already heard what the prosecution said. Oh, so there you go again, right? Now the jury is charged with listening to both, right, and then weighing the evidence, right? So if you haven't done that, if you've decided to disregard the defense's case because you already have formed a conclusion based on one side, then yeah, you're gonna be at odds with what the jury may come out with. Right? Now, I'm saying that, still saying that I understand the system does not work fairly. But you've already put yourself in a different mindset than the mindset that you should be in when you do that, when you say, I don't need to hear that. Well, no, you're supposed to listen to it all, because some of it may wind up being that, along with the fact that the system is screwed up, that the prosecutor was incompetent, right? And so some things that the prosecutor should have done, and then we can still have this argument that the prosecutor could have done everything correctly, and still you got some racist MFers on the jury who didn't care, and they're going to still do this. I get that. I'm not disputing that. I'm simply saying that we still have to look and make sure that we control the things that we can control, which is that we have a competent prosecutor.
Okay.
Right? And so,
you know what else?
And so to that end, Diane, right, when we decide that we're going to go protest in these different ways, as opposed to holding our elected officials accountable for appointing competent judges, appointing competent prosecutors, appointing competent people who, because we know how screwed up the system is, we need to have the best of the best Not somebody's friend or some political hack who got the job because they donated some money to something. You understand? And so now, all of a sudden, here we are in this system that we already know is screwed up, and we got incompetence running amok. Right? So we can fix this one thing to make sure that we have a competent prosecutor. I think this one is. What were you gonna say, Jody?
I would say we should. That when Diane said that she hasn't watched. Like this, to me, the defense case is something that we should focus on, because yesterday you would have seen, when you're thinking of the theory of all you have to do is get one person. You don't have to be the brightest person, just one person saying that jury. That the witness he had yesterday gave them so many off-ramps. He gave them carbon monoxide poisoning. He gave them so many other issues to just argue in that room, in that space, to say it could have been, right? And that's all I realized yesterday, that he was definitely, or the defense's theory is to just throw a whole bunch of shit on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Something's going to stick with one person. That's what he's hoping for. It's not even like his witnesses. I had a cousin who put on the witnesses between the prosecution and the defense is like the difference between P-Town and Whole Foods, right? So true. They're not the best witnesses for the defense. They aren't, a lot of things they'll say, oh, I didn't look at that. Oh, I didn't see that. No, I didn't consider that, right? But it doesn't matter, because they're not fighting his innocence. They're just fighting for a body, for someone on that jury to say, well, he could have died of this, right? Or he could have died of that, right? And that isn't that the quintessential of you didn't do it without a reasonable doubt? That's all they need.
Right. But understand. So here is the burden again by the prosecutor, and again, it's a higher burden when you're dealing with a black person, right?
Yes.
You got 74% of that county where those jurors were pulled from. 74% are white, right? We can't ignore that. Right, so when we say how do they see us, well, we know that the defense's case has always been to define that they see George Floyd as a junkie.
Yep.
Right, out of control junkie with a bad heart that had it coming to him.
Yep.
Right, that's it. So now you just roll the dice. You go, so the odds are, we got 74% white folks. What are the odds that you got one? Just one, that sympathizes with that.
Yep.
That says, you know what? Over here, you got this white cop, right? White, more valuable. Black, disposable, right? Just one. And then all they need is a reason. Like you said, Jody, just give them an intellectual reason to go into the deliberation with. Just something. Something that they can hang their hat on and say, this is the point I'm going to argue. I'm going to argue carbon monoxide. Now, you tell me that it couldn't have been carbon monoxide. You can't guarantee that it wasn't. Right, that's the argument in the courtroom. I mean, in the deliberation, right? You can't say that it couldn't have been. Yeah, no, I understand, because here's the argument, right? I understand. Yep. Well, I'll give you he had his knee on his neck. I'm not even going to say shoulder blade neck. I'm going to say, yep, he had his knee on his neck. Yep, he did all of those things. Yep. Oh, yeah. But if it was carbon monoxide, then it wasn't Chauvin's fault. Right? If he had a bad heart, if it was somebody who didn't have a bad heart, then they wouldn't have died. Or if he wasn't on the fentanyl, and methamphetamines, right? If that wasn't, then he wouldn't have died, right? So just something. No, I'm not gonna. And then finally stand up and go, nope, nope, nope. You can't prove. You can't make that. Nope, nope. I'm not gonna. And then guess what? You got a hung jury. That's it. That's it. So understanding the arguments that are going on, understanding the evidence that is being presented, because that's all they do, right? They have these people come up because they need to have the stuff in the record, because everything that they have in the record, everything that isn't stricken or that the judge doesn't, disallows, all of that other stuff gets to go in to the deliberation room and be deliberated. So as nonsensical as it was for the guy who got on the stand yesterday and couldn't prove that the car was running. He had no evidence that the car was running.
Yeah.
I want you to understand that. He had no evidence that the car was running, but was allowed to say...
Because when they pull up, they automatically, for the most
Well,
part, turn the car off.
I don't know. I don't know if there's evidence. See, this is my point to you, right? See, because it's all about evidence, right? Is there evidence? Is there something in the transcript? Because realize this, that the jury always says what? We're asking for the transcript about the car, right? So now when you ask for the transcript about the police car, you're reading through there to see if there's evidence, right, that the car was running. Is there? Is there evidence that it was running or wasn't running? I don't know. Who testified to it? Did anybody testify to the car running? Because if nobody testified to it, then there's no evidence. And so now when you go, well, but normally when people, no, we're not talking normally. See, here's the foreman of the jury now. We're not talking normally, we're talking evidentiary. Show me the evidence that the car was... I can't show me that. Well, then I can't go that way.
Well, that's if you got a smart foreman that be handling. I don't know how actively involved.
And you know what, Diane? That's the point, right? But it showed yesterday that they didn't even care, right? When I knew it was crazy, they testified that a methamphetamine, and I don't even believe I got this deep into it, but I'm like all engrossed. That a methamphetamine, they're talking about how it can affect his heart. That when it breaks down in your body, when they do the autopsy, if it has switched from a methamphetamine to an amphetamine, then it can slow down your breathing. He could die from that, right? But not if it's a methamphetamine. It's if it's an amphetamine. So when this witness did his report, he saw somewhere that it was an amphetamine. And so if it was an amphetamine, it could slow down his heart and he died of drugs, right? When the prosecutor came back on and was like, did you receive the updated report? He's like, yeah. I couldn't believe this happened. He said, yes. He was like, where they told you that it was still a methamphetamine during the autopsy. He was like, yes. He said, you didn't change your report, did you? No. And you didn't testify to that when you were testifying earlier, did you? He said, no. And they just kept on talking. So I don't know if anyone caught on that. That's when I was like, oh, they're just throwing it up against the wall. They're just hoping that one of the jurors doesn't pay attention to the prosecution coming back up and going through that information again. It was several things he said that he had to admit later or before he knew anything or before he looked at this report. But so it kind of lets you know, it doesn't matter, right, that they know he's guilty. That the defense attorney knows that this guy in a real world could go to jail for murder. He's either looking for, like, rolling the dice for the lesser of the charge or that one body that doesn't.
But let us be clear too about the defense attorney, right? He's doing his job.
Yes, he is.
Right?
He is.
Like, you can't be mad at him for doing his job. His job is to create reasonable doubt. That's his job. His job is to create. His job was to, and I don't know whether they hired a consultant. A lot of firms hire consultants, jury consultants, right? So that when they're going through jury selection and the voir diring of the jury, they have their ways of profiling jurors, right? Because they know that they need to have this kind of jury. Right? So the questions that they ask, the answers that they get, kind of give them some insight to how to proceed with their defense strategy, right? Because now they have this jury, they have profiled it to the best of their ability. They have eliminated people that they thought were not going to be favorable to their client. They have gotten on the maximum number they could who they believe might be favorable, right? And now it is all about the jury. It's not about the evidence, it's about the jury. Let's be clear about that. And so the defense attorney is doing the job he's supposed to be doing. And this is why I say so. Now, in a fair world, right? And again, we started by saying that we know it ain't fair. But in a fair world, right? The defense attorney is doing what he's supposed to do, and then you need an amazing prosecutor, because that amazing prosecutor has to convince 12 people when this defense attorney only has to convince one. But now in an unfair world, right, which is where we are, right? We got some other shit that we need to take care of. So while the wrangling is going on in the courtroom, right, and black lives are being painted on the streets where black lives don't matter, and we're not holding accountable those who appoint people to these positions, that's where we're falling short. So when we say Black Lives Matter, well, hell, did we make sure? Did we do the thing that we should do to ensure that from the local level to the county level to the state level that we had in place? Or did we just show up and then whatever judge was there, whatever prosecutor was there? You see? And now we complained about the guy who just left the White House, right? But what did they do?
They took care of
the courts, didn't they? He said, "Listen, because some shit may go down, and my grandchildren may have to go before court, and I want to make sure, right? That's right.
Take care of us.
That's absolutely right."
And that's what they did. And it's funny that you say that, because now Joe Biden is now talking about expanding the court system, the judiciary system, from the traditional 9 appointments. And they're talking about doing that. And they're actually supposed to be having a conversation today before a committee about expanding it so that they can have additional judges on these committees. Because what happens is, they're lifetime appointments. And if you just stick with the 9 that has been there, which was the traditional old-fashioned way, which is now outdated, if they add more justices, then he can add and have a more favorable justice system in place should, like you said, his grandkids ever need it.
Yeah. Yeah, they're playing along.
Like, you do anything to put them black bells on that damn floor. You do absolutely anything but to put a black bell on that floor. And I'm going to call them from now on black bells, because that's how they're seeing it. That's how Joe Biden is seeing it.
Absolutely. When we talked about the first,
I ain't putting them black bells on that floor.
On the first 100 days or whatever he's doing, and I don't know what day he's up to now, but when we talked about it the first 2 weeks, and we started and we named and went through the list of bills that the executive orders that he was putting out, he talked about then the protections for Asians and Island Pacificers. There was nothing in regards there for protections for black people. And black people said, "Oh, give him time. He just got in there. He just did this." But Yes, it would put those things up there. And we talked about this initially. I went through every single one of them. The first 20 some days that he was there, all the stuff that he put out, the 20 some executive orders that he did in the first couple of days. That he did initially a couple of days, but going backwards, he said if it wasn't for you ain't black unless you vote for me. The black people is who vote here. He said that, but we didn't hold them accountable. And like Eric says, again, we don't hold these people accountable. But then we want them to do something.
Oh my God! I forgot. You ain't black enough. That's crazy. That's crazy.
So you know what? With the last couple of minutes, remember I kept saying to you guys, we talk about how to where we should start and tearing this stuff down. I know a lot of different places that we need to go, but I keep saying that until we are serious about removing these books out of these schools, right? So Pearson just announced, and I got a text message yesterday. So Pearson Education, hold on, here's the headline. It says, Publisher Pearson tries to tackle systemic racism in higher ed. Now, remember I told you I used to work for them, right? I was an art director. And this is about 22 years ago. I was an art director for Pearson in the higher ed department. And I would say to them, like, yo, and I was the only black guy up there, right? All the other, this is when they still had mail rooms, right? The other black people were down in the mail rooms, so they had other positions, right? But I would say to them, like, yo, like, this is like not cool. This is like racist. You guys actually have an algorithm for choosing the number of black faces in your book compared to white faces and Asian and Hispanics. And it's based on what state you're trying to get an adoption in for the book, right? To make money. And I'm like, it shouldn't be like this. And literally, I would get like beat down in all of these meetings. This is 22 years ago, right? 22 years ago. So I get this in the thing, and I'm like, they're not serious. I know they're not serious. Because if you're serious about it, the things, and what I said to the person in my comment to them is I said, they say, Eric, this is, you talked about this 22 years ago with them. And I said, yeah. I said, but they wanted the money and they still do. I said, they won't do much. I said, for starters, if they want things to change, they need new authors. They need new writers. They need new editors. And more importantly, they need new publishers. Right? You got to do all of that. And they're not going to do that. They're going to keep the writers that they have, because a lot of those authors and writers, they make a ton of money. They make so much money. And they make the publisher money. And so if they leave that publisher, they'll go to another publisher. Right? So Pearson's not going to give up a well-known author, right, that has been making them money for decades. They're not going to do that. But if they were serious, that's what they would do. They would have to say, look, we're getting rid of all these, and not just have the writers or the authors rewrite their books. No, you need to get rid of them. You need to get rid of them because it is in the DNA. It's who they are too. Right? Which is why for decades they've been doing this. So you need to say, you know what? You got to go. All those other decision makers, they got to go too. And then the publisher who ultimately makes the decision, that those publishers have to be gone as well. But nothing's going to change. So, but anyway, that is an article that's out there. I'm going to post it so you guys can read it. But this is more tokenism. Because they understand. They understand when you had, you have, what was it, Dr. Seuss and all this other stuff, people coming up and they're canceling all this stuff. So they're trying to get in front of it now because they're like, oh, shoot, we got to say something. We're the largest educational publisher in the world and we haven't opened our mouths about this. So, anyway.
That's interesting. And that's interesting that they're even jumping out to say that, but even knowing what you know from the inside, like you said, another system that has to be completely destroyed.
Well, listen to what it says. I'm just going to read a portion of it. It says, Pearson employee groups in both the U.S. and Great Britain began developing the guidance over a year ago. It was reviewed by Jason Arday, a professor of sociology at Durham University in England, who authored the Black Curriculum Report. Increased awareness and support for movements such as Black Lives Matter and the decolonization of K through 12 and college curricula in the past year have raised questions about a lack of diversity in the publishing industry. See. Now, but what I'm saying to you is this, right? So when I say, yeah, you got to get all these books, it is the decolonization, right? At those levels, like this major shift in curriculum. And so I say again, we can argue with the Pearsons of the world and the rest of them, but until we're taking care of business at home. So I think the election just happened in Newark, right? Or is about to happen for the new board members, right? And none of them are talking about this, right? None of them. So when I say hit the streets, remember I said earlier, hit the streets. They ain't hitting the streets. So they're not hitting the streets.
Yeah.
They're not hitting the streets because they got their own agenda at the expense of all those babies. So now what they'll do, see, because this is how the Negro whisperer and the slave catcher do it. They'll go, oh, see what Pearson is doing? And they'll jump on this if it catches fire. But they won't be out there, right, sacrificing shit. Because they want to make sure that their paycheck, that their pension, that their influence, political influence, that all of that is intact at the expense of all these babies.
Yeah.
Right? Right? So, because none of them are talking about this. Like I said, 22 years ago, I was talking about it. But none of these elected, the education mayor, right, said he was principal, and right? Is he talking about it? Is he talking about it? Is he running to all those schools, right? Now, because don't get it twisted and think that because what he'll say now is, see, that's the Board of Education. See, I'm the mayor. Oh, but when Cammy Anderson was in office, right, he didn't have a problem as a member of the council going and blowing up the Board of Education meetings. See, right? So to have the conversation now with a bigger bullhorn, and I shouldn't say bullhorn because he put that away after he got elected, but a bigger platform, I guess I should say, he's not going and saying, hey, let's take a look at this, right? Let's take a look at where the hard-earned taxpayer dollars are going in terms of purchasing books that are poisoning the minds and continuing to colonize our children. Thing. So I look at these. It's that's what's sickening to me. So yeah, I'll fight with Pearson and I'll yell at them, but we can't do that absent of fighting and yelling at the people that we allow to continue to run our cities and our children into the gutters. And that's me off my soapbox.
That's I just kicked the soapbox off from under your feet.
But it's true.
Well, it's been wonderful. It's 12 o'clock. Let's pray that I don't even know if I can say that there's no more murders, police murders.
Oh wait! Can I read this one other part? Out of this, I posted this article. It says some textbook publishers face fierce criticism of the content they publish. A McGraw-Hill Education K-12 textbook, for example, came under fire in 2015 for labeling enslaved people as workers.
It's not funny. Sorry.
Okay.
But I want you to understand this. But I want you to understand this. See, and I know.
Antebellum.
So what?
You gotta watch that movie Antebellum. It's on Netflix. Did you see it? Or maybe you're on Amazon Prime as well. Did you see it, Jody?
No.
You got to go watch this because this is going to tie into. It's very. I don't know how this movie slipped through and people didn't really talk about it, but just a brief. You're in modern day life. We're in 2021, and literally in a community in a town, they're still practicing slavery, actively practicing slavery, actively having you dressed as a slave, and they're the slave masters, and you're on a plantation, to find out that literally it's not a dream, but literally they have come and snatched you back and brought you into their world. And this is not a time capsule. This is literally happening at the same time of 2021. So the movie was done 2 years ago. You have to watch it. I watched it the other night. It was crazy. It was crazy.
I will watch it today.
All right. I just want to read another paragraph. So I want you guys to be incensed. It says, an audit of Pearson textbooks with respect to the guidelines, so they have these guidelines out now, right? Announced yesterday is already underway with more than 100 titles completed. Matthews said the publisher has already made changes to some titles, including a sociology textbook that featured an image of a black man being handcuffed by a white police officer. See, so my question is, right, so okay, and Pearson should go and they should audit this. But my question again is this. All of these predominantly black school districts, right? These black mayors, these black are they auditing these books too? Right, of course they're not.
No.
Of course they're not. Right? Of course they're not. So, anyway, I'm going to post the article. It's worth reading. But then you should ask your local elected officials, what are they doing to audit this stuff? Because if they listen, what did Malcolm say? Malcolm said only a fool will allow his enemy to educate his children, right? And so if we're waiting for Pearson to fix it,
it won't happen.
It ain't going to happen, right? We have to fix it, right? Anyway, thank you guys very much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Jody, I love you. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Love you.
Ramadan Mubarak. I'll talk to you guys later. Have a great